Welcome to today's program, Choosing Your Ideal Call Sign. My name is Anthony Luscre, Kilo 8, Zulu Tango. All the links embedded in today's presentation are available at the web shortcut tiny.cc/QTE-call. Again, tiny.cc/QTE-call. Anytime you see the little link icon, that means that it's an embedded link in the presentation. First, the definition of the word call sign. It's basically a combination of identifying letters and numbers assigned to an operator for use in communication on the radio. The first known use of this word was in 1907. Initially, with so few call stations transmitting, amateur radio stations did not use call signs. Everyone knew each other. As the number of stations started to rise, a more formal way of identification became necessary. Even before the mandatory use of call signs, their concepts started to be introduced. Making contacts via Morse code, many operators realized that giving a full name was rather long-winded, and first names were often repetitive. Call signs provided a unique way of quickly identifying a station. Typically, about 3 letters were used, often the operator's initials. In the UK, in May 1910, the Postmaster General, in a letter to each of the holders of amateur radio license, informed them that he had found it desirable to lay down a general rule that each station should have a distinctive call sign, and that each station, when signaling, should begin each transmission with the call sign of the station. Also provided in the letter were assigned call signs for each station. These British first call signs consisted of 3 letters. In the USA, there was no licensing of amateur radio stations until the Radio Act of 1912. Until this time, the early radio amateurs had allocated themselves call signs on an ad hoc fashion. Despite this, in 1909, Modern Electrics magazine published a listing of U.S. stations and their self-assigned call signs. It listed the name and broad location of the station, along with the call letter, which normally consisted of 3 letters, although a number had fewer letters even. It also listed the approximate wavelength on which each of them transmitted, along with the spark coil length or the transmitter power. However, as licenses became necessary, the stations were issued with call signs, initially issued by the U.S. Department of Commerce. Your call sign becomes your persona. My call sign is Kilo 8 Zulu Tango, but my original call sign when I got my novice license in 1981 was Kilo Alpha 8 November Radio Charlie, a call sign that I held for almost 20 years. In 2000, I adopted a Vanity call sign, Kilo 8 Zulu Tango. And these are some of my QSL cards over the last couple years. This is a collection of QSL cards from around the world, and even though they're tiny, you may immediately notice some call signs that stand out to you as people that you've heard on the air or people that might be your friends. Sometimes we know many amateurs by their call sign only and not their names. Call signs are a unique worldwide identifier of you. Behind every call sign is a ham, and often a story behind that. Stories include where you lived when you first got licensed. When you got your license, you can tell some old-timers by the call signs that they have. The call signs you got after upgrading your license, moves you had made over the years, and who originally had your call sign. There's 4 steps in the process of deciding on an ideal call sign. The first is to decide on the type of call sign you're looking for, and we will discuss the types in an upcoming slide. Then you need to look for available or soon-to-be available call signs that meet your criteria. You can begin your search on K8ZT.com to search to see if a call sign is in use. AE7Q's excellent website or other similar sites can be used to find call signs that will be available soon. Then you can use the spreadsheet which I've designed to help you rate your choices. Finally, when you've made your decision, you can apply for your Vanity call sign via the FCC form, or depending on your country, the route that's required for your individual country. In the USA and some other countries, hams can request a special call sign of their choosing. And from here on in, we're going to be talking about the USA, but many of these things apply to other countries also. Criteria can vary on what you decide to choose. Some things you may have little or no control over. If someone else already has the call sign, of course, it's not available. You cannot receive a vanity call sign from a call sign group for which your operator class is not eligible. So, for example, if you have a technician class license, you won't be eligible for a 1x2 call sign. The call sign doesn't match your geographic location. Some locations are required for issuance of special call signs. Although you're no longer required to change your call when you move, your original location may influence what call signs you're available to get. There's also a list of restricted call signs by the FCC, and we'll take a look at those over the next couple pages. Special locations in some of the following pages, we will look at call signs that are restricted in assignment by the FCC. The first one includes special locations, including some of the licenses that were used for U.S. operators overseas in Asia, Antarctica, and other remote locations. The inclusion of SOS and the Q codes in the call sign are strongly discouraged and restricted. Of course, if it's not a USA call sign, it's not available at all from the FCC. And the examples here are all examples of stations that start with the letter A, but are not included in the range of A's that are available to US hams. So AL is the last version of A double letter call signs available. So some of these include Spain and Australia, and they're of course not available through US operators. 2x3 call signs with X suffixes are not available. The EMA suffixes, which are reserved for FEMA. 2x3s that begin with AA through AL or NA through NZ are currently not being assigned by the FCC. 2x3s that begin with any of these four special prefixes are currently not being assigned, although you may find some that have already been assigned. For example, WM3 Pen is an example of a call sign that has been issued in this group. And KP, NP, and WP call signs that are usually used in the Caribbean are not issued with the numbers 0, 6, 7, 8, or 9 currently, only currently issued with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And all by one call signs are not available for permanent issue. They are temporary call signs for special events. So these next couple pages give more details on why each of these restricted call signs are not available, and I will leave these available for you to take a look at when you go through the slideshow. So let's look at some criteria for choosing a vanity call sign. As I said earlier, you might want to choose a call sign based on the type of decision you want to make. And I'm going to divide that up arbitrarily into three groups: personalized call signs, cute call signs, those that are endearing, clever, captivating, winsome, comical, etc., and something I'm going to refer to as optimized character call signs. And we'll go into more details on each of these. Personalized call signs could include things such as your name, initials, or a nickname. Things such as K2 Bob, K8AAL, which would be my initials, K4 Doc, or N1 Mom might be an example of these types of call signs. The location might include your state abbreviation, such as WV8WV, W2NYC, W4 Dix, W6BAY could be examples of that. A club name, maybe you're part of the Potomac Radio Club or the Kansas City Amateur Radio Club or whatever. These are just made-up examples, but some of these may actually be issued. Your alma mater, the university that you're from, might be the abbreviation you want to use. Sports team that's your favorite, such as K9 Cubs or WY2ANK for the Yankees, or if you're a Lakers fan, etc., etc. Historical call signs, calls that are formerly held by a relative, and these are a special category you can apply for if you have a relative who had a call sign in the past. and I have just K4 dad and W2 mom here, but they would actually be the call signs of that relative. For details, you visit the FCC page on former relative call signs, and I'll give the link to that a little later in the presentation. Other historical call signs might be derived from a call sign from another service. Maybe you served in a commercial or military or aviation fields, or you were a station engineer at a broadcast station, so something like W2CBS or W8WLW might indicate a previous or other license that you had, or K3DKA for KDKA. Events in history or historical figures, such as WW2WW for World War II, or William Penn, or K9 Abe for Lincoln, or W5LBJ for President Johnson. So these are just some examples of abbreviations that can be used to create personalized call signs. Cute call signs bring in the characteristics of being endearing, clever, captivating, winsome, comical, etc. They could be puns, or they could be initials, or they could be a variety of things. There's two different types. Those that are visually, in other words, not when you hear them on the air, but when you write them down on paper and you visualize them. And quite often in that case, we would visualize some of the numbers as actually letters. So sometimes you might see that they spell a word when you look at them. So example might be K1LT would be kilt, even though that's not the way it would sound on the air. So there's a variety of things that you might choose. You might also like the visual appearance, such as W1MM, which can be turned over upside down and still be the same call sign. Or they can be cute phonetically. They might work great on a QSL card, such as W9 Old Punkin from an old QSL card I have in the shack here. You might have also heard in Field Day the group from Huntsville, Alabama, using K4 Big Fat Turkey on phone during Field Day operations. Many stations that have MM for the suffix will go by Mickey Mouse. So again, these are cute either visually or phonetically. Some other cute examples might be initials, K4 FBI, W6 USN. Could be acronyms, LED, FET, SWR, SVU, OTA, VHF. Again, depending on what activities you're involved in, they might be something that would be interesting visually or phonetically as acronyms. They can spell words or abbreviations like K9 Fox, or K2 Pi, or W8 Car, or K4YL, or K7OM. These would all be examples of cute call signs that spell words or abbreviations. And when we do this, we often use the number 1 as a I, the number 0 as an O, and the number 5 as an S. So when we look at these again, we could have kite, corn, washed, noisy, kiss, or ICOM. So WICOM here if your preferences in radios runs to the ICOM range. Now, the third category is something I'm going to refer to as optimized characters. These are call sign choices that are based on selecting a set and sequence of letters and numbers that benefit the call holder with one or more advantages. They're easier or faster to send. This would also be the case with shorter call signs. They're easier to receive, fewer errors by the receiver. Quite often they might be characters that have less CW elements in them. They might be more clear phonetically in single sideband. Faster recognition, quicker exchanges, etc. So these are all designed with the idea to help minimize the number of errors and increase the speed at which your call sign can be both sent and received. And again, some of this is subjective. Optimal character call sign choices can be the most challenging to select. Typical optimizations: total length of the call sign. 1x2s, of course, are very desirable. 2x1s have the same length but are not traditional in format, so sometimes they may be confused. 2x2s are a good option when 1x2s and 2x1s are not available. 1x3s again are shorter, and finally 2x3s are the longest type of call sign. CW character lengths, rhythms, etc., ending in certain dits or das might be advantageous or cause disadvantage. On phone, phonetic clarity, combos of words, of letters that go together well phonetically, etc. I know my original call sign of Kilo Alpha 8 That alpha 8 sound was very difficult for a lot of the Japanese operators to get phonetically when they were hearing me on single sideband. No, not a problem on CW though. I stewed for a long time on selecting my new call sign. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to change from my original call sign, and you might run into the same thing, so think seriously before you make a change. I made up a spreadsheet and ranked all the potential call signs that I was looking at on a number of criteria categories and then ranked their scores. The criteria used were collected from a number of sources: articles by experienced contesters or DXers, phonetic studies, psychological and learning studies, graphic arts and marketing studies, personal experience, and of course subjective input from fellow hams. Like, hey, does this call sign sound good on CW? Or hey, does this call sign sound good on phone? Other criteria for optimized characters include the number of characters, the total letters and numbers, the number of CW elements. Even though you might have the same number of letters in your call sign, it can be substantially shorter with shorter CW element characters. That would be the total number of dits and DAWs. The total length of weighted characters, this is where we weight the DAWs as being 3 times more time consuming than the dits. The visual appearance, how will it look on a QSL card or a vehicle license plate for that matter? Other criteria: letter clarity. How clear are the sounds of the letters on voice? B's, D's, E's, T's, and other sound alikes are very problematic when you're not using phonetics. R, X, O, etc. have their own very unique sounds and are easier to distinguish in many cases. Again, the language of the native language of the listener may also influence this. Phonetic clarity, how the calls sound in phonetics, and how easy and clear each phonetic is to pronounce, both singly and combined. You also have to include the numeral in the call sign when you're considering the phonetic clarity. Some people like to choose emphasis letters for DX PAL-up, both in CW and single sideband. Certain letters or characters have a more distinct sound in a big PAL-up of stations. Hard consonants often sound best at the end of a call sign in single sideband. Ending on a DA instead of a DIT is usually preferable in CW. But some letters such as K can be confused as a prosign or abbreviation or as part of the call sign. So if you have a 2x3 call sign and it ends in K, someone might confuse it for a 2x2 call sign with the prosign K being sent at the end of it. So that may be problematic. Criteria considered also included how the rhythm of the sounds were in CW. And if you're not interested in CW, of course, this won't be as much importance, but I would still consider it because you don't know what your future operating may include. I put my call signs into my keys memory and played them back at various speeds to listen to them. You can also do this using any of the online code generating websites or programs found on my Morse code webpage at K8ZT.com/Morse, or you can go to this link on Text to Morse Code Translator Player. And let's just go ahead and jump there real quick and take a quick look at that. Here's the place where you type in your call sign. Then you simply hit the play button. And you can play back your call sign. And you can do this for as many as you want. You can also combine them and have them play in order. So again, that is one of the places that you can test the sound of the call sign by using online software or websites. Other criteria you might use to exclude call signs would be those that you have personal difficulty in sending a letter in CW, or a combination of letters that may be difficult for you personally to send. Letters that are difficult or non-existent in certain foreign languages. If you're focusing on one specific foreign language, or if you might not be a native speaker of English, you might find it difficult with certain letters that are not available in other languages. Previous call signs of a notorious ham. If the ham was a real lid and has a very bad reputation, you may not want to follow up taking the same call sign, because other people may not realize it's not them anymore, it's a new person. There's also the question of whether you want to choose a call that's similar to a well-known call sign. It may or may not be a plus or minus in the long term, but probably means for a period of time when your call will be frequently busted, in other words, written down wrong, when people confuse it with the existing call sign for the more popular existing contester or DXer. So adding up the whole process, I rated my selective calls on a 1 through 10 scale, with 1 being the best, 10 being the worst for each of the different categories. Some of them are subjective. Other ones are numerical values for quantitative criteria, such as CW characters, total characters, CW weighting. Those can all be calculated and don't require a subjective idea. Then I found an average score for each of the call signs. This may sound obsessive, and my wife Linda, K8ZT, told me it definitely was. But I had my old call sign for 19 years, used it many thousands of times, and I hoped I would not need to change my call sign again. So I don't think it was very obsessive to think about it for a long time. After you have selected and ranked your call sign selections, you need to complete your FCC Vanity application. For invaluable help with this, sometimes competitive process, please refer to the links on the next slide. Then the wait begins as you hope the FCC grants you one of your top choices. Fortunately, the process usually takes less than 1 month. I hope to hear you on the air soon with your ideal call sign that you selected. And this is a link. These are resources with links from the FCC, the ARRL, AE7Q, Radio QTH, and ham data, where you can find helpful information on finding available call signs, searching for soon to become available call signs, the application process, and other details you might need to know when you're working on choosing and applying for your Vanity call sign. I have developed a spreadsheet, compare your call sign choices, that makes these comparisons easier. It is free and you can choose from different formats. When you click on the link, it will allow you to make a copy of a Google spreadsheet. You can then use the copy to enter your information. If you prefer to use Excel, you can instead choose to download that copy of the Google spreadsheet as an Excel spreadsheet if you have that software on your computer. I have put in some sample call signs as placeholders. You want to replace these with your choices. The phonetic and Morse code characters are auto-populate if you prefer, and you do not need to put those values in because they're auto-calculated. We'll put that show you that information in a demo here in a few seconds. For the subjective categories, you may want to enlist one or more other hams to get their opinions and experience. Depending on your amateur radio interest, you may want to include one or more of the following: a contester or a DXer if those are the areas you're really interested in. Check with a couple of those people to see what they think about your ratings of possible call signs. This is an example just showing the spreadsheet with some data in there and the numbers that are applied. There's more resources available at the FCC Vanity call sign page, and I definitely suggest you read through this before you get into the application process. Additional resources available include some very interesting resources I found, including the story history of amateur radio call signs by Mike W7VO. Mike is going to be presenting at the 2021 QSO Today Expo. So if you didn't hear Mike, please go back and listen to the recording. And finally, some fun with call signs. Over the last few years, CQ Magazine has run a WPX call sign crossword puzzle that I have authored. You can find this crossword puzzle using a variety of cute and interesting call signs in the magazine February 2021 issue on page 44, or you can complete it online at this little shortcut here. So again, I hope you have fun with that. We will go into the question and answer session in a few moments here, but first I'm going to do a demo of my slideshow. But I want to remind you again, to get the resources that you need today, go to tiny.cc/QTE-callsign. And from here, you can also click on a link for the spreadsheet. If you need this presentation in PDF format, you can also do that right here. So let's go ahead and click on the link for the spreadsheet, and you'll see that what happens is it brings up a sheet asking you if you want to make a copy. And once you do that, that copy will be your own copy. It's completely separated from the website. And you can edit it and make changes in your own personal version that you now have in this copy. There's some tabs at the bottom. The first tab is the notes page that explains different parts of the spreadsheet and how to use it. It also talks about the areas that you're going to judge subjectively, some criteria that you might want to use. The second tab is for the call sign spreadsheet, and the last two tabs are locked, and they are the information that helps calculate the CW characters and the CW weighting. And you don't want to change those unless you really understand your way around spreadsheets. So let's click on the call comparison page, and we can see that if, when we type in a call sign, let's type in a call sign here, November 8, Echo Victor. And as soon as I hit the tab key or the enter key, it will auto-populate the NATO phonetic entry. It'll also generate a form of dots and dashes to show you what the CW would sound like. It also auto-generates the number of characters, the number of CW elements, and the weighted lengths of the CW elements are included here. The next section, in the red section right here, are the sections where you would put in your subjective ratings for each of the call signs. So the first thing would be visual appearance. How does this call sign look? And I'm going to give this a 6 here. And I can give these each different categories. So again, visual appearance, letter clarity, phonetic clarity, emphasis letters in CW, emphasis letters in single sideband, and the CW rhythm, how it sounds when you play it back. So again, all of these are a subjective category that you fill in from 1, which is the best, to 10, which is the worst rating for each one. What will happen then is the last 2 categories will generate a total score, with the lower the score being the best score based on the criteria. And then it also has an average. So again, the lowest average would be the one that would meet the criteria best. So again, depending on your subjective ratings and the calculator ratings, you'll get a whole number of different scores here for different things. And you notice that some call signs can be very short, such as the CW weighting in this one, which is extremely short. And these are adjusted with a constant to make them fit in with the same ranking of 1 to 10. So they're not exactly what you might see if you just did the calculations yourself. To a very long CW, such as this Juliet 0 X-ray Zulu Quebec call sign. So again, that is the spreadsheet for calculating it. And again, all these resources are available at tiny.cc/QTE-call. Thank you. That ends my presentation. We'll now go into the question and answer session.